Situation is that we've got a hearing scheduled for 10:30 a.m. this morning. The special counsel's office has filed a criminal complaint against the former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. And it's about comments made to the FBI in regard to whether he had conversations about Russian sanctions with the former Russian ambassador Kislyak. You'll recall that he was forced out of office in relation to whether he had those conversations. He initially said that he did not discuss those sanctions. We now know that he did. The special counsel has filed a criminal complaint. Flynn is expected in court at 10:30 a.m. where we expect that he will agree to plead guilty in connection with that charge.
Presumably, Pierre, we would learn a lot more at that time. Let's go back. These are conversations that occurred in December 2016 when Flynn was slated to be National Security Advisor for President Trump, when indeed he was inaugurated in January. Still, this was during the transition at that time, and these were at least two conversations in late December with Ambassador Kislyak at a time when President Obama's administration was looking to level sanctions and punishment against the Russians for their involvement in the election.
Correct. And you recall that the then acting Attorney General Sally Yates contacted the White House, told the White House that they were concerned that he had misled officials about it, including the Vice President Pence. And the FBI subsequently interviewed him about these accusations. The FBI had, according to our reporting, secretly recorded the conversation, knew what he said, and then when they asked him about it, he apparently was not forthcoming, and he's being charged with that today, George.
And Pierre, presumably we'll learn a lot more at this plea hearing at 10:30. We'll learn perhaps what information, if indeed General Flynn is pleading guilty, what he's been willing to give in return for this, because this is a relatively narrow count right now. We had also seen reports in the past of his failure to report his lobbying activity on behalf of foreign governments, which could have also led to criminal indictments.
Exactly. There are not often federal felonies in connection with that kind of activity, but the level and the amount of foreign lobbying that Flynn had done had drawn the scrutiny of the FBI. He had been investigated for acting on behalf of Turkish officials, and he had filed information updating the fact that he had done considerable work on the behalf after the fact, George. That is not listed in what the document that we have so far, but again, we expect to learn a lot more at 10:30.
I want to bring in our Chief White House correspondent, John Carl, for more on this as well. John, this is obviously significant for a number of reasons. General Flynn active in the campaign as a surrogate for President Trump, for candidate Trump at the time, also as an advisor on his national security team, slated to be his national security advisor. This is an activity during the transition. We also know that President Trump, early in the administration, was seized with the Flynn investigation, and according to James Comey, the former FBI director, was asked by the president at one point to try to go easy on Flynn.
Absolutely, that was a key part of the Comey story. We also recall, George, that the president spoke glowingly of Flynn even as he was about to fire him for misleading statements that he made to the vice president. And one big question here was whether or not the president would issue a pardon, a preemptive pardon to Flynn. He had not done that. Interesting to see where that goes now. But I am struck by the point you made, which is this is a narrow indictment, very specific to those two conversations. There's nothing in here about Flynn's son, who was also somebody who had been questioned by independent counsel, by special counsel Mueller. And the question is, what did Flynn agree to do in return for this narrow indictment rather than something that could have been significantly worse for him? Is he going to give information on the president or other people on the president's team?
That would be the big question. I want to get a final question back to Pierre Thomas right now. Knowing what we know about the way that special counsel Mueller has worked in the past, you would expect him to reach a deal with someone who is indeed the national security advisor for the president only if that person could get information on someone higher up or someone else in the chain, the president, absolutely, one of his sons, his son-in-law.
Absolutely, George. That's typically how it works. You're giving a deal like this in order to get additional information to make sure that you have every avenue covered. And George, one of the key things that I think we're going to look for is why. Why did Flynn feel the need to mislead the FBI, and all these other people? That's the big question that we've never gotten a clear answer to. Why would he feel the need to mislead people?
Perhaps some answers will be coming at 10:30. We will be here all day long once more. General Michael Flynn, the former National Security Advisor to President Trump, has reached a plea agreement with the Special Counsel Robert Mueller, pleading guilty to at least one charge of false statements to the FBI concerning conversations he had with the Russian ambassador in December 2016. Much more ahead on the update of GMA and as this plea agreement becomes more clear. I'm George Stephanopoulos in New York.